In the hushed corridors of Tokyo's government buildings, where tradition and modernity blend seamlessly, a once unthinkable idea is quietly gaining momentum. Behind closed doors, Japan's top policymakers are grappling with a dilemma that could reshape the nation's future and reverberate across the globe. Japan, long regarded as America's most steadfast ally in Asia, is now discreetly exploring the possibility of forging closer ties with the BRICS bloc, a coalition of emerging economies that includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This move, while subtle, marks a significant departure from decades of unwavering loyalty to the United States. This isn't a rash or impulsive decision. Instead, it's a carefully calculated response to a rapidly shifting global landscape. Japan's leaders are facing a crisis of confidence in the United States, their traditional security guarantor and economic partner. The world is changing, and Japan is determined not to be left behind. The looming possibility of a second Trump presidency has sent shockwaves through Tokyo. With his aggressive tariffs, unpredictable diplomacy, and America First rhetoric, Donald Trump has already shaken Japan's trust in its closest partner. The fear is that another term could bring even harsher economic measures, further isolating Japan and threatening its prosperity. The U.S.-Japan alliance, once seen as unbreakable, built on decades of mutual trust, shared values, and common interest, is now showing signs of strain. Japanese officials are increasingly questioning whether they can continue to rely on the United States in an era of rising protectionism and shifting priorities. For Japan, the risk of being caught in the crossfire of economic warfare with its own security guarantor is nothing short of a strategic nightmare. The threat of tariffs, trade wars, and economic isolation is forcing Japanese leaders to rethink their most fundamental alliances and consider options that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Japan's overtures toward the BRICS nations are not an act of betrayal. Rather, they are a pragmatic move, an act of self-preservation in an increasingly unpredictable and volatile world. By diversifying its partnerships, Japan hopes to safeguard its economic future and maintain its influence on the global stage. This story is about more than just shifting alliances. It's a stark reminder of how rising protectionism and uncertainty can push even the most loyal allies to seek new partners. When old certainties crumble, nations must adapt or risk being left behind. As Japan weighs its next move, the world is watching closely. Whatever path it chooses could signal the dawn of a new, more uncertain era for global alliances. One where old friendships are tested and new partnerships are forged in the crucible of change. For over 70 years, the U.S.-Japan alliance has anchored global stability. Born from the ashes of World War II, it was a simple bargain: U.S. security for Japan in exchange for bases and a bulwark against communism. This allowed Japan to rebuild, becoming an economic powerhouse and a key U.S. trading partner. The alliance fostered prosperity and contained tensions across Asia. U.S. forces in Japan deterred conflict while economic ties deepened. But as China rose and the Cold War faded, new frictions emerged. Economic disputes surfaced, but the alliance's strategic value held until America's own policies began to challenge its foundations. Now, the partnership faces its greatest test from within. Donald Trump's 2016 victory marked a sharp break from decades of U.S. policy. The America First doctrine saw allies as competitors, not partners, and alliances as transactional. Trump's trade war hit Japan hard. Tariffs on cars and steel struck at the heart of its economy. The U.S. withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership was a bitter blow, signaling a retreat from multilateralism. For Japan, the unpredictability was alarming. Its closest ally could become an economic adversary overnight. The core issue wasn't just tariffs, but the philosophy alliances mattered only if they served immediate U.S. interests. This forced Japan to ask, if America is no longer reliable, where else can we turn? The search for alternatives began. Trump's tariffs sent shockwaves through Japan's industrial heart, especially its auto sector. The threat of steep tariffs jeopardized billions in revenue and thousands of jobs. Uncertainty paralyzed investment and rippled through supply chains. Japanese leaders scrambled diplomatically, but loyalty no longer guaranteed special treatment. The lesson was clear: even the closest allies were vulnerable to U.S. economic pressure. Reliance on a single partner became a strategic risk. Japan realized it needed to diversify its economic relationships to survive. The seeds of a more independent foreign policy were planted. In response, Japan launched a bold diversification strategy. It salvaged the Trans-Pacific Partnership, leading the creation of a new trade pact without the U.S. Japan struck a major free trade deal with the EU and deepened ties with Southeast Asia, India, and Australia. This web of partnerships reduced dependence on the U.S. while maintaining security ties. Japan's approach was pragmatic: hedge bets, build leverage, and stay flexible. As BRICS expanded, Japan saw opportunity, not just risk, in engaging with emerging economies. Engaging with BRICS could be the next step in Japan's quest for resilience. It's a bold, calculated move in a world where old certainties are gone. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, has evolved from an acronym to a powerful bloc. Its mission challenge Western dominance and promote a multipolar world. Recent expansion has boosted its economic and demographic clout, now representing nearly half the world's population. BRICS seeks alternatives to Western-led institutions, including efforts to reduce reliance on the US dollar. The group's new development bank funds projects in local currencies, aiming for greater financial autonomy. Internal divisions, especially between China and India, limit its unity, but its symbolic power is growing. For Japan, BRICS is too big to ignore, despite its complexities. Engaging with BRICS means engaging with a major force in the evolving global order. For Japan, engaging BRICS offers real rewards. Economic diversification is the most immediate benefit, access to vast growing markets and a buffer against US trade shocks. Participation could give Japan a voice in shaping new global rules, rather than reacting from the sidelines. It would boost Japan's diplomatic leverage with both Washington and Beijing, signaling independence. Japan could help steer BRICS toward constructive engagement, not just anti-Western rhetoric. As a bridge between the global North and South, Japan could enhance its prestige and influence. This new role would position Japan as a global connector on issues like climate change and development. It's a high-stakes gamble, but one with transformative potential. Even a cautious engagement with BRICS by Japan would send shockwaves through the global order. Such a move would not just be symbolic, it would signal a fundamental shift in the balance of power, challenging the dominance of existing alliances and institutions that have shaped international relations for decades. The world would watch closely as Japan, a key player in the established order, reconsiders its position on the global stage. The U.S.-Japan alliance, long considered unbreakable, would face unprecedented strain. Washington would inevitably question Tokyo's loyalty, leading to tense diplomatic exchanges and a possible re-evaluation of security commitments. The trust that has underpinned decades of cooperation could be tested, with both sides forced to confront uncomfortable questions about their future partnership. Japan's pivot would also complicate the already intense US-China rivalry. By engaging with BRICS, Japan would demonstrate that alliances are no longer rigid or binary. Instead, countries are increasingly willing to pursue flexible, interest-based partnerships, blurring the lines between friend and rival. This new reality would force both Washington and Beijing to rethink their strategies in the Asia-Pacific and beyond. Other US allies, observing Japan's bold move, might be inspired to follow suit. They could begin to pursue more independent foreign policies, seeking to balance their traditional alliances with new opportunities for cooperation elsewhere. This trend could weaken the cohesion of long-standing blocs like the G7, as countries prioritize their own interests over collective action. Japan's involvement would lend significant legitimacy to BRICS, transforming it from a coalition of emerging economies into a forum that includes a pillar of the established order. This would not only boost BRICS's credibility on the world stage, also encourage other developed nations to consider engagement, further eroding the old lines of division. The result could be an accelerated shift toward a truly multipolar world, where power is negotiated among several competing blocs rather than dictated by a single superpower. In this new landscape, influence would be more widely distributed, and global governance would become more complex and dynamic. For Japan, this would mean carefully balancing its Western identity with its deep-rooted Asian interests. The country would need to step into a more autonomous role, acting as a bridge between different regions and ideologies, and navigating the challenges and opportunities that come with greater independence. Ultimately, this is a step toward Japan shaping its own destiny, asserting itself as a proactive, independent actor in a world where no single nation holds all the cards. In this emerging era, Japan's choices could help define the contours of global power for years to come. Japan's potential pivot is more than just a national decision, It's a bellwether for the future of global politics. As the world watches, Japan's choices are sending ripples through the international community, signaling that the era of predictable alliances may be coming to an end. The country's strategic recalibration is being closely monitored by both allies and rivals, who see in Japan's actions a possible template for their own foreign policy moves. If Japan begins to hedge its bets and diversify its partnerships, it could set off a domino effect. Other U.S. allies, seeing Japan's pragmatic approach, may feel emboldened to reconsider their own positions, potentially unraveling the old alliance system that has defined global security for decades. This shift could fundamentally alter the balance of power, as countries seek to maximize their own interests in an increasingly uncertain world. The world is moving away from rigid Cold War-style blocs, and toward a more fluid, multi-aligned order. In this new landscape, national interest often trumps ideology, and countries are more willing to engage with a diverse array of partners. This flexibility allows nations to adapt quickly to changing circumstances, forging new alliances and economic ties as opportunities arise. In this emerging order, nations may choose to partner with the U.S. on security matters, collaborate with China on infrastructure projects, and engage with Europe on trade and technology. This pragmatic approach enables countries like Japan to extract maximum benefit from each relationship without being locked into a single camp. Japan's actions could pioneer a new model for constructive engagement between competing blocs. By skillfully navigating between major powers, Japan may demonstrate how middle powers can maintain autonomy and influence, even as great power competition intensifies. The story of Japan's pivot is also a reminder of how domestic politics can reshape the global order. Internal debates, public opinion, and economic pressures all play a role in shaping foreign policy, and Japan's evolving stance reflects the complex interplay between national priorities and international realities. America's recent turn toward protectionism has pushed even its closest allies, like Japan, to seek new partners and diversify their options. This shift is opening the door to a profound realignment of global power, as countries look beyond traditional alliances to secure their interests in a rapidly changing world. Now, Japan stands at a historic crossroads. Its next move will send shockwaves across the globe. The choices Japan makes today will not only shape its own future, but also help define the world order of the 21st century, influencing how nations cooperate, compete, and coexist in the years to come.